Okay, so today we're going to test out a few different focal lengths in a bit of a challenging environment. So we've got a few things going on here. Number one, we've got this crazy background, this black and white background. Number two, if I turn around here, I've got this amazing amount of light coming in from across the hallway, and that's causing pretty intense reflections on this TV screen. And what I could do in theory is I could place myself over in front of this white background here, but the problem is once I throw some lights on me, that's going to be very reflective. You can see even with these incandescent lights above me, which I'm going to flick off, more than likely, I'm going to turn those off because I got blue tones coming in from the side over here with the daylight temperatures coming in. So I'm probably going to want to just turn these off, and they're also going to give some nasty shadows under the eyes. And I'm going to light this myself, and of course balance my lights to match the daylight temperature coming in from outside. But the issue is that once I put my lights on, it's going to be amazingly reflective off that white surface, so I really can't film there. And so I can't film by facing over here towards the TV. I can't film right against that wall. So really, all that's left is right over here in the corner, there's going to be a place for me. So what I'm going to be doing is setting my frame how I want it, obviously. And I'm basically going to have the same frame for each of these lenses because I really want to crop this out. I want a nice, solid, even background. So I'm going to crop this out here. I'm going to crop out the reflections on this TV. So essentially, if I see some of this wall, that's okay. But I basically want to be from here to here. And I'm also going to be interested to see in how these black and white lines are going to show up. They are pretty out of focus on this picture. I mean, the actual image on the wall, they're not sharp lines, in other words, so that's good. The sharp black and white lines in video are always going to look very, very bad. You get a little bit of what you call a moire effect. Won't go into that here, but it looks really, really bad. You can maybe experiment with that on your own. But essentially, I'm going to want this from this wall to the edge of here, and so obviously I also want this mic out of frame. So let's set up the frame, and for the first test I'm going to be using what would be a 16mm lens on a APS-C size sensor like the Sony a6300, which is what I'm using. This is equivalent to about a 24mm roughly on a full frame lens. Okay, so on this lens, I've got to get the camera very, very close. The camera's only about 2 feet away from me, maybe 3 feet away from me right now. And you know, the edges of my frame are about right where I want them. So, okay, so now I have a 30mm lens on my Sony a6300. So this would be equivalent to roughly a 50mm or a 48mm lens on a full frame camera. And so that is with this lens. And, you know, again, I've tried to set the frame pretty much the same. And what I'm looking for here is just what gives the best look, because there's some various things at play. With the longer lens, I can potentially throw the background out of focus a little bit better. And with the shorter lens, the background's going to be more in focus. Of course, this background already looks kind of out of focus because of the way that they painted it. But the other thing too, I'm guessing that the longer lens, possibly this one or maybe the next one I'm going to use, which is a little longer, I'm guessing those are going to look the best because as you increase the focal length, people show up better, people look better. When you use the really wide angle lens, their features are too exaggerated, their nose sticks out too far, and their ears go back too far, and their face is a little too rounded. And I won't get into the technicals of why that is. But that's why when you take a selfie camera, a lot of times, when you take a selfie, I mean, a lot of times it's not the best, most flattering looking image because the features are a little rounded. What they say, generally in photography at least, is when you're using a full frame camera, you want about an 85mm lens would be like the perfect portrait lens. Some people say 50, but generally the consensus is around 85. So the next lens I throw on there, that's going to be a 50mm lens on this sensor, on the APS-C size sensor for the Sony a6300. It's equivalent to about a 80mm lens on a full frame. So that should be, in theory, the most flattering lens, but we'll see how it looks and whether I can even fit the camera in this environment, so I'm gonna have to back up the tripod for this. Okay, so now for this test, I'm using the 50 millimeter on the Sony a6300. If you're using full frame, that would be roughly equivalent to around an 80 millimeter lens. So this one, I think, is probably going to be the best, because when I set it up, what I noticed is that I was really able to get in a little further, to have one side be here and one side be here, and still have me, I think, in the frame centered pretty nicely. I'm going to see how that looks later on, although again, it's challenging without a cable. Eventually I'm going to connect it to a monitor and actually monitor, but for this I just want to see the playback. So yeah, that's how this one looks. So I think it's pretty clear to me from the playback that the 50 millimeter definitely looked way better, and like I mentioned before, a lot of the reason is just because of how well it makes people look, which includes me. So it actually makes me look pretty good in this shot, and so that's really great. And I'm going to set up now the lights and everything, and we're going to check out the footage that I'm going to get from this camera. So there's a couple different light setups that could work in this space. This is light setup number 1, and you'll notice I have some harsh shadows on my eyes, and this is why. So as you can see from the images, I have a light over on my left. I have no light coming from my right, and this gets to another challenge of this environment, and another reason I like the 50 millimeter lens is the challenge is I don't have any space. Like right now my hand is hitting the wall. Like right now you can see it in the frame, it's just 6 inches from the wall, and so there's not a lot of space to put a light over here to kind of balance out some of those shadows. So the only place I can put a light is on my left, or I could do it straight on, which could work. It probably would work a little better. And here my mic is dipping into my environment here. So this is the second light setup. I think this is probably going to look a little better because I got 2 hard lights coming at me on the left, and then I got one kind of balancing a little bit, cutting out some of these shadows on the right. It's much more even, potentially less dramatic lighting look, so depending on what you're going for. But for this style video, I'm speaking directly to the camera, I definitely want pretty even lighting on my face, and so I think this is probably going to be a little bit superior. So I hope you enjoyed this video, a little demonstration of how to make difficult environment work in terms of the lighting setup and the focal length. And I did want to mention as well, I mentioned earlier that the advantage to this 50 millimeter lens, that there was another hidden advantage I didn't talk about. And the real advantage is because of the 50 millimeter lens, I'm able to get in a perspective closer with less peripheral vision, you could say. The 50 millimeter lens zooms in more and kind of cuts out the things on the side. And so the actual area of view is actually going to be condensed. And there's a lot of reasons for that that I'm not going to explain in this video. But the whole point is that to my left and to my right and above me, there's actually less space than there was before. And that's why I'm able to get now the mic a lot closer and the lights in a lot closer than I could with any of the other lenses. With the other lenses, I really couldn't get an angle of view where I could have this light on my right here that's lighting me so well on the side of the face, and so I would really only have the one light. And so this is definitely far superior for that reason. So make sure that you like our channel and subscribe to our channel, and that way we're going to be able to reach you with more great content like this. Hopefully you gained something here, at least had a fun experience watching this. And as well, like our Facebook page, and that way you'll get any new videos that are released, and you can share them with your friends and family. Thank you so much.